Hello, everybody. Am I live? I would like to read a book. Well, I don't know if it's good book or not. And sorry for being late. Actually, I thought I was on the stream, but I wasn't. And it's actually my first live stream, and I actually read and commented a lot of this book. And okay, let's just go to the heart of the matter, actually, and read the book once again, now with the audience, because I was just talking to myself because lack of knowledge about the StreamYard. So if anyone is listening, I encourage everybody to participate in my reading of this book. It's a book that I heard somewhere. It's actually probably a book that is, if it's published, it's probably not so controversial and go along with a lot of traditions and don't want to go against them, I guess. But okay, let's not be boring and start to go to the heart of the matter, the first chapter. I will just not read the introduction and all that stuff because I'm interested in the history and not what the author thinks. I want to know the history and the facts that nobody is talking about. If you're interested in that as well, please join me now. Okay, the heart of the matter. May those who divide Christ be divided with the sword. May they be hewn in pieces. May they be burnt alive. That wonderful quote was from the Second Council of Ephesus in 449. In 449, well, actually, that comment is just so wonderfully Christian-like that it shows a lot of about people that don't think very highly about human beings and Christ being human. Actually, yeah, that says a lot. In 449, the leading fathers of the Christian church met in Ephesus, in Asia Minor, to debate pressing theological issues. At a critical moment, a band of monks and soldiers took control the meeting hall, forcing Bishop to sign a blank paper on which the winning side later filled in its own favorite statement, like the ones I've just read. The document targeted the Patriarch of Constantinople, Flavian, one of the 3 or 4 greatest clerics in Christian world, yelling, "Slaughter him!" A mob of monks attacked Flavian, beating him so badly that he died a few days later. So outrageous was the intimidation that the ultimate winners in the conflict invalidated the whole council. They repudiated it as latrocinium, loosely a gangster synod. From later history, many episodes when Christians would resort to violence. Well, actually, they resorted to violence from the time of Trinity onwards, and like mm, the Trinity says that they can and they should use violence against everybody that do not believe not just in Trinity, but in exactly the way the Trinity they say it is. Because if you are believing closely to what they say and you are vocal about it, but it's not the same, they could and should, according to their words, do something bad to you. So that's a serious matter. And if people would still treat that thing seriously, I would not be allowed to say that publicly. But actually, they do not. But that's another story. Let's read um, further. From later history, we know of many episodes when Christians would resort to violence, especially against members of other faiths. But in this instance, the different sides agreed on so much. So that's what I just said. Both factions accepted the same scriptures and the same view of the church and the hierarchy, and both agreed that Jesus Christ was God incarnate, the second person of the Holy Trinity. So they were really very closely to each other, and still they hated each other. So that's just... but that should not actually be any surprise to anyone, because the worst battles or violence is within the family, within someone that is close and similar to each other. So that should not be actually anything weird here. Where they disagreed so violently was over the nature of Christ. Flavian enemies and their monkish militia believed that Christ existed in a single nature in which the divine dominated. They felt that by failing to proclaim this truth, by advocating a Christ in natures, Flavian's party had betrayed the core of Christianity. Literally, they thought Flavian had divided Christ. So actually, Trinitarians were pissed about the Trinitarians, and they killed one Trinitarian, killed another Trinitarian. Well, what a surprise, actually. From a modern point of view, we are baffled to see such an extraordinary violence unleashed over what might appear to be trivial philosophical row. Well, I'm not baffled to see such an extraordinary violence, because they made such an extraordinary violence since the conception of the Trinity. Surely we might think these debates involved over fine distinction quite as trivial as the proverbial disputes over the number of angels who could sit on the head of the pin. Yes, and the Bible said to not quarrel over the words. And they are quarreling and killing each other over the definition of the words. That is something that Paul warned us about. Just what could have caused such a bitter hatred? No, well, the similarities and the Trinity, I guess. In fact, the conflict involves a paradox that is quite central to the Christian faith, where there is no paradox in the Christian faith. Well, everybody who believes that I don't know. Write a comment. Yeah, if you believe there are paradox in the Christian faith, just write a comment. Yeah, I guess Christians must believe that God is wholly human and wholly divine. Well, says who? But it is easy for a believer to stray too far in one direction or the other. Well, why? Either we might think of Christ purely as God, in which case he is no longer human. Well, what does it mean, no longer human? I mean, I don't understand such a statement. When do you become no longer human? Can somebody explain it to me? What is the process that you're human and then you're no longer human? I just can someone up or the process where you are just a partly human. That's like what? What is going on here? Has no share in our human experience and becomes a divinity in the sky like Zeus or Thor, or else, in contrast, we focus so much on his humanity that we underplay the divine element. What does that mean, underplaying the divine element? Can somebody explain that to me? Because I don't understand that statement. And deny the incarnation. Well, as far as I've checked, the word deny is if when someone denies the reality. I mean, well, I don't think that is the reality that I'm living in, actually. Maybe they are living in some other reality that it is the incarnation is the reality because it's not the I understand they are it's a real in some other sense. I understand. I don't deny it's real for them. I don't deny the incarnation. Uh, well I just say it's not my reality. This might be their reality. I mean, like maybe they are living in another world. I maybe they are from the world and I'm from the heaven, or they are from the heaven and I'm from the world. I don't know. We don't live in the same reality, I guess, because I don't think think that incarnation is the reality if I have to deny it. Or that sentence makes no other sense actually. Just philosophically, I just whatever. We would preach a Christ of two natures and two minds, literally a schizophrenic being. Well, if you say so, Mr. Trinitarian, if you say so, I wouldn't deny that reality. Yeah. According to his enemies, unfairly and inaccurately, that was Flavian's sin, and brutal violence was the only appropriate response to his gross insult to the Son of God. And according to some commentaries, there are many people that would want to do the same to me as they did to Flavian, because in their view, I don't see the Jesus as mm, how they say it, incarnated enough, I guess, if that makes any sense. The violence was unforgivable, and so were all the acts of persecution and forced conformity. But in one sense, ancient Christians were exactly right to be so passionate about their causes, if not the means by which they pursued them. Far from being philosophical niceties, the central themes in the religious debates really were critical to the definition of Christianity and to the ways in which the faith would develop over the coming centuries. Well, definitions are not as much important as much as likeness. Okay, just fruits, I guess. That's what's important according to the Bible, and not just going along with words, twisting them, making their definitions right or whatever. Yeah. And the fruits of the killing people over and using such a words that a person should be divided with the sword because they disagree with him. Well, that's not quite a good fruit, I would say. I would not eat it. I would say like that. Yeah. Somebody want to eat it. It's completely fine with me. If you want to eat that fruit, go ahead, man. Just go ahead. In early centuries of Christianity, very strong forces were pulling Christ Godward and heavenward. Oh, it need to be pulled Godward. Oh, they very strong forces were pulling Christ Godward. Oh my goodness! I thought that God was pulling Christ. I mean, exalting Christ. I mean, well, who are they that they want to exalt Christ, the already exalted by God? And who are they that they wanted to exalt Christ? Well, are they better than God? I guess they think so. They are. Well, later on, we will see that that is the case. Okay, that is the case. That's funny, but that's true. That's funny. That's really funny. Across the religious spectrum, early prophets and founders usually are exalted over time. In his, well, actually, no, I disagree with that statement. That according to the Bible, God exalted Jesus, and not he was exalted by people. I guess, but if you believe that you can exalt Jesus, well, I guess you can have your opinion. I guess I don't say that you don't, but that's not the Bible. Okay. In his last words, Buddha commanded his followers to rely on no external savior, but within centuries, Buddha had himself become a divine trans-worldly being whose worldly relics were cherished and all but worshipped in their own right. Yeah, that's what actually Christianity and Buddhism is very, I mean, the false Christianity. The Babylonian Christianity is very much similar to Buddhism. I mean, yeah, I agree with that statement, but that's not the Bible. That's not the Bible, man. That has nothing to do with the Bible, but it's reality. I guess it's not the reality that I'm living in, but it's the reality for many people. Yeah. Buddha had himself become a divine, transworldly being whose worldly relics were cherished and all but worshipped in their own right. Within Christianity, too, the persistent temptation has always been to make Christ a divine figure free from any human element. Well, yeah, that's like every sinner had that temptation, I guess. But I can't be like Christ. I can't be. Christ is better. That's he is not human. No, 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 not at all. Whenever Christianity has been a confined faith that dominated empires, believers have commonly imagined a fearsome heavenly judge or a cosmic ruler, the Pantocrator or all ruler who glared down from dome of a mighty basilica and whose human status was hard to accept. Well, yes, that's how they view God in Old Testament, and that's why they asked for a human king. And they had get the human king, Christ Jesus, as the Apostle Peter have said. So now they don't want him, and late and firstly they wanted him, and now they don't want him. I just don't just well. I guess whatever. In more recent times, fictional portrayals of two human Christs ignite furious responses from those reluctant to imagine a figure too involved in worldly concerns. Yes, that's Platonism. And like it is undistinguishable with the current Christianity. That is the definition, like fictional portraits of two human Christs ignite furious responses from those reluctant to imagine a figure too involved in worldly concerns. That is so platonic. It's like God cannot be involved. Not saying that anything about God, but that's what Platonism says that the, that Platonic God cannot be involved in anything. That is another different issue. It is in the foundation of the false Christianity, the Platonism, or Platon philosophy. But that's not, but that's just a digression. I'm sorry. In the 1980s, the image of Jesus married with a family stirred worldwide cries of blasphemy against the film Last Temptation of Christ. Well, it might be stirred worldwide cries of blasphemy because it's unbiblical as well. It doesn't have to be just because it's anti Platonic. It doesn't have to be. So many bristle at any suggestion that the founder of the faith might have experienced any human passions or weaknesses, any doubts or qualms about his mission. Human sexuality apparently represents a stain that can in no way be associated with a purely divine being. Well, I guess that wasn't their idea, but actually that is the idea of a Catholic Church. That actually Augustine have said that every sexual activity, because it's a passion, is sin. I think that is not anywhere said in the Bible. Okay. Actually, if that is true, then the Bible is very sinful because it depicts sexual acts actually, and and one may say even erotic literature with the Psalm of Psalms, and so it's self-defeating prospect. I mean, it's Platonism. It's just a Platonism. It's nothing else. Okay, let's go on. Christ moved. Christ moves among humanity like a divine tourist. Yes, that's Platonism. That every soul migrates to Earth and is just a tourist and it doesn't belong here. And what Jesus have said that he doesn't belong here, that is actually according to the Platonism, right? That every bad, I don't believe that actually. It's not like I explain it because I believe it. It's no, I find that bullshit, and I think that subconsciously or partially, many people believe that Jesus Christ actually, when he said that he's not from the world, he wanted to say that everybody is not of this world. Okay, it's just and we are just passing by, and we are just travelers here, and we will well actually he is not of this world, but in a literal sense, not in a sense that everybody is like Jesus. Yes, everybody can be like Jesus, but not everybody is. Well, as you can see, it's kind of a messed up thing because the author is saying such a thing like he moves among humanity like a divine tourist, and he implies that thinking that is wrong. And he implies that everybody can think about this statement in only one way. No, you can think it like in a biblical term and in a platonic term. That's Christ moved among humanity like a divine tourist. There is nothing wrong with that statement. It's ambiguous. And that book is kind of ambiguous in a sense, and I'm kind of worried about the ambiguity of this book because well, it's not a safe book actually. And I would advise everybody to be cautious to read that book. Okay? And yet, through centuries, other Christians have fought to preserve the human face of Jesus. Well, that is his only face, I guess. I mean, what was he double faced? What? What does it mean having two face? It's like is that in the English language like being a liar, a deceiver, two faced, having two faces, right? Just think about it, okay? Placing him fairly on earthly soil and in human society. Partly the idea arises from the common human need for an inaccessible divinity. Well, no, that idea arises from the Bible, actually, um, to be exact. And doesn't have to accessible divinity. Well, I kind of agree with that, and God wanted a human king, so that represent him. So it's kind of a true and kind of a misleading statement. Okay, let's look further. A figure who shared our experience and can hear our prayers. Well, yeah, just like a king and a high priest. That's what the Jesus Christ is according to the Bible. According to he is king according to the Gospels, and he is the high priest according to the book of Hebrews. Even the societies that pushed Christ so far from human reach can create a substitute in the form of the loving Mary, Virgin and Mother. Yes, exactly, because they made Christ non human. They need loving Mary, Virgin and Mother. Yeah, yeah, I can actually agree with that statement. But the concept of a human Jesus is vividly present in the New Testament. Believers have never forgotten the image of the Galilean who suffered agony, who knew doubt and temptation, who was brother and exemplar of suffering humans. Yeah, that's the Jesus of the Bible. They knew that Jesus wept. Over the last 2000 years, Christians have repeatedly struggled to resolve this perpetual tension between Christologies from above and from below. Yet never was the debate more central to Christianity than during the Council of 5th century. Well, I guess they had nothing better to do. I guess they produced no good fruits, so they had to produce bad fruits of quarreling over words. I guess that's the case. For some decades, it seemed almost inevitable that the church might all but abandon its self belief in the human nature of Christ and describe him overwhelmingly as a divine being. Well, actually, they do that in their head. The main outline of the story is quickly told. Underlying all the intellectual debates were profound rivalries between the church's great patriarchates, with Alexandria on the one hand and Antioch on the other. Well, the word great is like, I guess, magnitude, not um, how to say, goodness. Uh, Antioch, on the other hand, not in the biblical sense that they do so much for the other people, yeah, but great as in the sense of being, as in the pagan sense, that they wield a lot of power to hurt people, yeah, not to help them, but to hurt them, yeah, they wield that power, yes, exactly, the influence. Such a greatness. Great patriarchates with Alexandria on the one hand and the Antioch on the other, and with Constantinople as the primary battlefield. Antioch stressed the reality of Christ's human nature. Alexandria fought any statement that would separate human and divine. Uh, well, and what's the and what's the conflict about? I guess I didn't get it. From the statement. Antioch stressed the reality of Christ's human nature. Where that good? Well, that is good because saying that Christ is human is kind of important as Bible stressed that. So being biblical is good because that is true, right? Alexandria fought any statement that would separate human and divine. I don't understand that statement. What is to separate human and divine? It's just I don't understand. Can anybody explain that to me? During the 420s, the monk Nestorius brought his Antiochian teaching with him when he was appointed Archbishop of Constantinople. And disaster followed. At the First Council of Ephesus in 431, Nestorius was condemned for teaching a doctrine of two natures, separating the divine and human. But don't they say now that Christ have two natures? I guess they do. Maybe I missed something. Once Nestorius was crushed, believers in one nature push ever harder to establish their teachings, supported by the juggernaut power of the Patriarch of Alexandria. In 449, the One Nature Party managed an effective coup at the Second Council of Ephesus, the Gangster Synod. Well, there was a lot of such synods, not just this one, proclaiming their own doctrine and all but breaking links with the papacy in Rome. Over the next 2 years, the Orthodox Catholic made a dazzling comeback. They organized around one text above all, the letter of Pope Leo, that became known as the Tome. The Tome. Their political resurrection culminated in the Council of Chalcedon in 451, which accepted the Tome as the definite guide to Christology. Very gradually, over the next century or so, well, I guess that 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 the authority of this tome was greater than the Bible. Wow, I guess so, because they actually view that as more authoritative than the Bible, because that tome said what Bible said. So I guess they were the authority, not God now. Okay, let's see how that went. The next century or so, Chalcedon became the touchstone of imperial orthodoxy. Oh yeah, just let's be happy about it, right? They threw Bible into the trash. Let's be happy about it. Some decades after the council, a writer in Latin West summarized Chalcedon's conclusion in a series of theological propositions with an unnerving conclusion. After listing Chalcedon's edicts in agonizing detail, the so called Athanasian Creed, which actually had nothing to do with the venerated Saint Athanasius, proclaims that this is the Catholic faith which, except a man believe faithfully, he cannot be saved. Quite literally, your eternal salvation depends on holding a precisely correct faith, which meant the definition laid down in 451. The Athanasian Creed. Furthermore, it is necessary to everlasting salvation that he also believe rightly the incarnation of our Lord Jesus Christ. For the right faith is that we believe. Well, actually, you can read that for yourself. What is the Athanasian Creed? Between them, fierce Ephesus and Chalcedon shaped the Christian theology right up to the present day, teaching that no complete vision of Christ could omit either the divine or human aspects. Uh, what is the no complete vision of Christ? It's like the definition of Christ, right? Well, okay. Let's read further. Christ did not just come from two natures; he existed in two natures. Well, that's just a wordplay. That doesn't mean anything. As Pope Leo wrote, it was clearly human to be hungry and thirsty. Well, that's good of him that he acknowledged that. To be weary and to sleep. But Christ was just evidently divine when he fed the 5,000, walked, well, what does it mean? Was just as evidently divine. What does it mean? Walked on the water and ordered the storm to cease. The human Jesus mourned his friend Lazarus. The divine Christ spoke words that raised that same friend from the dead. Well, I'm sorry, but those was that was not words of Christ that raised Lazarus from the dead, but God raised Lazarus from the dead. Okay? Just, just to be clear. Leo concluded, for his manhood, which is less than the Father, comes from our side, his Godhead, which is equal to the Father, comes from the Father. Okay. Um, so I mean, that's ambivalent statement here. That could mean anything actually. We are also so used to the triumph of Chalcedon that the praising of the tomb seems like a straightforward and even anodyne expression of Christian belief. Well, it might seems like that is so because if everything is written like this quote, then everybody and nobody can agree with that. That is so ambiguous that one doesn't know what is being said here. Everybody can agree with that. What means his godhood, his godhead? What does it mean actually? Can anybody explain it to me? I see one person is watching this. Could you answer that? Okay, we are so used to the triumph of Chalcedon that the praising of the tomb seems like a straightforward and even anodyne expression of the Christian belief. Okay, I've already read it, sorry. Yet, for all its apparent striving to be fair and balanced, the tomb met fierce opposition throughout the oldest centers of Christian faith. Well, I don't know what it is to oppose with that. Um, because it doesn't say anything as far as I know from that quote. I would have to know what is in the tome. What if God was one of us? Wow, what? That is, I guess, the name of one of the songs of the Ram. And it's utterly Catholic. Yeah, the Ram was Catholic completely. The battle of the natures shapes one fundamental views of the world. Someone who thinks of Christ as wholly divine is hard pressed to see any goodness in the material world and tends to set a wholly good spiritual world against a totally depraved material creation. Well, that is not true. That is partially true because current Christianity is very much against the material creation, depraved material creation, but it doesn't have to be. But it is. Yeah, right. I agree that the the Christianity views that, but there is no logical conclusion there. That if you think that Christ is divine, you have bad view on the material creation. That's a straw man here. I don't agree with the author. In the contrast, those who believe in a human Christ are more likely to accept the potential goodness of the material world. I mean, why? Seriously, why? Can someone explain this to me? Why believing in the human Christ is potential goodness in the material world? Why? And the first not. Why? Although they hold that world may now be plunged into sin, then at least it can be redeemed. Well, that's biblical view. Belief in the incarnation leads to sacramental vision. Yeah, try to explain that to the Protestants that yes, belief in the incarnation leads to God being in a wafer. Yes, that is believing in a Trinity leads to Catholicism. Yes, it does. That I can understand. That sentence. For Leo, denying the two natures led to even worse theological errors. Their blindness leads them into such an abyss that they have no sure footing in reality, either of the Lord's passion or his resurrection. Both are discredited in the Savior. In our own fleshly nature is not believed in him. Mm. Well, whatever that means, denying the two natures. What I don't kind of understand that. Maybe they are blind. I don't know. And maybe they something, and maybe this something, and maybe this something. I cannot deny this. Maybe they are blind. I don't know who denied the two natures and how they denied the two natures and what does it mean. So maybe they are blind. I don't say that the Mr. Leo of the tome is wrong here. I don't know. The material acts redeemed a material world. Well, he was against Platonism, I guess. But I don't understand the conclusion. Why the sacramental vision need to be anti-Platonic? I don't see any argument here. Ultimately, the 5th century controversies focus on the issue of atonement, and without that idea, Christianity would have developed quite differently. Christianity believers have long argued over the meaning of Christ's death, but whether their disagreements, most churches preach that Christ shared humanity. Whatever that means, what do you think it means? Christ shared humanity. What did he had shares in humanity? I mean, did he have actions in humanity? I mean, did he have bonds of the humanity? I don't know what that means. Shared humanity. I mean, just what? is this. And that fact allowed him to redeem humanity through his sacrificial death. In order for redemptive doctrine to make any sense, Christ would have to be fully human, but why he does have to? I, I don't, I don't get it. Well, in order to die, he had to be human. But what does this mean to be fully human? Who is partially human? Do anyone know anyone that is partially human? That statement that someone is partially human, in my opinion, is inhuman. To say, you're just partially human, man. No, everybody is human, actually, that are human. If they are not human, they are not human. Okay, what does it mean? Fully human. I don't understand that statement. Can somebody explain that to me? In the same sense of having a body made of flesh, but also of having human will and mind. So, can someone be human and not having human will? It's like someone that is paralyzed. Is someone not fully human? Are you sure you would say that about a paralyzed man? That he is not fully human? Or that he or someone is out of his mind? Would you say he is not fully human? I don't know. Maybe someone there are, but I wouldn't agree with them. As Church Father Gregory Nazianzus wrote, if anyone has put his trust in Christ as a man without a human mind, what does it even mean, man without human mind? What does it mean? It's just blah, blah, blah. Does anyone argue for a man without a human mind? Maybe someone argued for a man without a human mind. I don't know. But that's stupid. He is really bereft of mind and quite unworthy of salvation. Well, I actually agree with that statement. That is kind of a funny. If there is someone to say something stupid, then he is stupid. But is he unworthy of salvation? No, stupid people can be worthy of salvation. I guess. I'm not to judge that. For that which Christ has not assumed, he has not healed. I don't understand that statement. Why that he have to? But I just Pope Leo, you're yeah, that's Gregory Nazianzus. Oh my god. Well, I guess I will end the stream here, and we'll continue tomorrow at the same hour, hopefully without any problems. Thank you for watching, and God bless.